Just like 5 months ago, it looked like the Timberwolves had one of the brightest futures in the entire NBA. Anthony Edwards had the best season of his career and cemented himself into superstar status. The Twin Tower partnership of Towns and Gobert was working, and the rest of the supporting cast was extremely deep and all relatively young. But with the shocking Cat trade and the relatively mediocre start for the Timberwolves, that future ain't looking so bright anymore.
I mean, it's still very early. Who knows? They could turn it all around this season. They could go on, win the NBA championship, make us look stupid. But so far, you bring in Randle, you bring in DiVincenzo. Neither of them have really impressed so far this year. And you only have control of one of your first-round picks in the next 7 drafts. And with how stacked the West is right now, future's looking a little bit murky.
Before we start talking about the future of the Minnesota Timberwolves, please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on any new videos. So we have to talk about the Gobert trade again. We'll make it quick because
just got to beat that dead horse a little bit more.
We've talked about this trade so damn much. In the summer of 2022, the Wolves acquired Gobert in a trade with the Jazz. They sent out Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverley, Leandro Balmoro, Jared Vanderbilt, Walker Kessler, who they just picked, 4 future first and a pick swap. Just a baffling trade. Like, if you're getting Giannis, if you're getting KD, if you're getting a guy like Tatum, sure, go all in for it. What are you doing going all in for Rudy Gobert?
He's a great defensive player. Depending on who you ask, he could be the best defensive player, but he is very limited on offense. And I've said this before about the Gobert trade. You could still be getting a good player and yet have vastly overpaid for him. Like, if you buy something that you really love and you get a lot of use out of it, but you pay like 2 times the market price for it, you still overpaid.
Yeah.
Like, you got something that's useful, it's good, but you still overpaid.
I mean, the logic at least made sense. You had Karl Anthony Towns there, a great offensive player, an incredible shooter, but not great on the defensive end. So you pair him with Gobert, the best defensive center, an incredible defensive rim protector. So on the offensive end, Cat could shoot, he could space the floor. And then on the defensive end, Gobert could protect the rim. Like, it made sense. The first year didn't go well. I'm not going to blame that on either of them. I'm going to blame it on Cat having that just severe calf injury. He only plays 29 games, their first round exit. But the following year, it looked like everything was clicking and it looked like the trade, while still an overpay, was working.
Yeah, I mean, the Wolves last year were one of the best defensive teams in recent NBA history. Gobert won Defensive Player of the Year. Cat was an awesome second option. Anthony Edwards had his breakout season, won 56 games, swept the Suns in round 1, had an incredible Game 7 comeback against the Nuggets, got to their first conference finals in 20 years, and sure, they got worked by the Mavericks, but still, this is one of their best seasons in franchise history. And it felt like after the season ended, the Wolves had probably the second brightest future in the NBA behind OKC. Boston had already arrived, San Antonio's got Wemby, but they're still a couple years away. Like, in terms of up-and-coming teams, felt like it was the Wolves and the Thunder.
And then during the draft, they acquire Rob Dillingham, a surprise trade to trade into the lottery to get him, and you're sending out more future firsts, a future unprotected first-round pick, and a future pick swap. It's tough to tell if that trade is going to be worth it. Dillingham has barely played. He's still raw in a lot of ways, so we'll see, but that's more picks you don't have control of. But even then, we were still sold on the Wolves, made a whole ass 26-minute video hyping them up, talking about how they built this championship team. But then we got the insane news. We were both together when it happened, when they traded Cat to the Knicks for Julius Randle, Donte DiVincenzo, and a heavily protected future Pistons pick. I mean, I understand the reasons. Cat had the massive contract, the second apron. It's something you got to consider for building teams in the modern NBA, but to do it after you just had this incredible season, one of the best seasons in franchise history, to a guy who had been with you this entire rebuild, it felt kind of bizarre.
Yeah, I understood the reasons. Candidly, I just disagree with them. Like, this was the most shocked I've been by an NBA trade in a while. I can't remember the last time I was more shocked by an NBA trade. Because like you said it, they just had their best season in 20 years. And to trade away your second best player, it wasn't like they had gotten to the same point a couple years in a row. It felt like they peaked and needed to shake it up. Like, it felt like they were still on their way up. And the only thing that I can really like relate it to is when the Thunder traded James Harden after the 2012 finals. Now it's not going to end up being that bad because as good as Cat is, he's never going to be as good as what James Harden was on the Rockets. But you know, that was a team that got to the NBA finals, had a core of some young superstars, and then traded away one of them because of some financial limitations that, let's be honest, they probably could have gotten around in the future.
Even with that trade, though, going into this season, they were going to be in the mix in the Western Conference playoff race. It was going to be tough for every team fighting out. And I'm not going to write them off. We made that clear in the intro. Like, you still got to work in the new additions. They got plenty of time to, you know, climb up the race in the West. And it's so tight right now that they could still finish as like a top 4 seed. But losing back-to-back games to the Blazers, they just lost to the Raptors, which I know they've been losing to the Raptors in Toronto. It's like 20 years now. The Timberwolves team last year compared to this year, they feel nothing alike. Like, they're not an elite defensive team anymore, which is weird because it's not like Cat was this elite defender they're losing. They still have all the main key defenders, and their chemistry has been bad.
Well, I mean, Gobert threw that big fit against the Raptors after he didn't get the ball.
Yeah.
To be fair, if I was 7-1 and had that positioning against Scotty Barnes, I'd throw a fit too if Julius Randle looked straight at me and then didn't throw me the ball.
Yeah, now there's like reports that DiVincenzo could be a trade candidate, which also makes no sense because that was one of the bright spots of the Cat trade. You bring in a guy like DiVincenzo, a 3-and-D guy who can knock down a 3-ball. Like,
you get an extra role player.
Yeah.
That was like what everyone that was defending that trade said was the reason why. It's like, oh yeah, you get DiVincenzo. He could come off the bench. Apparently he just doesn't want to come off the bench. Like, I mean, yeah, they could turn it around. There's a lot of season left, but at a certain point, there's not a lot of season left. Like, we're probably a week and a half away from being a fourth of the way to the NBA season.
And to be fair, we got to call ourselves out. We did warm up to the trade a little bit after it happened. You picked this team to make the finals.
Because I got that much confidence in Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, and I even said in our 3 words or less video, I said it was 1 step back, 2 steps forward because it gave you more flexibility, but kind of evaluating the trade more, I don't know if it gives you that much flexibility. Like,
and even if it does, like, flexibility is worthless if there's no moves to be made.
Yeah, like, is a team really going to trade an all-star level player for Randle? No. That pick from the Pistons, it's really heavily protected, so it really doesn't have a lot of value. They have no future picks to acquire a superstar next to Anthony Edwards, which big threes in the NBA, we've made very clear they're not really a thing anymore, but you need a big 2. You need a co-star, unless you're 2022 Steph Curry. To win a championship, you at least need one other co-star, and Anthony Edwards ain't winning a title with just Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, and I mean, who's his co-star? Like, is it Randle?
I guess.
Randle's probably not there for the long haul, though.
Yeah, and like, I don't see any way they make a trade to bring in this additional superstar. Like we said, Randle doesn't have high trade value. Sure, you could package Naz Reid and Jaden McDaniels, but then you're losing all your depth. They just re-upped Gobert to an extension. I don't think anyone really wants him that bad in a trade either.
And remember, they traded away Cat apparently because they wanted to keep Naz Reid.
Yeah.
So why would then turn around and trade him away?
So really, at the end of the day, sure, was that core ever going to win a title? Who knows? But at the same time, you killed any chance they did. And I just feel bad for Anthony Edwards. Like, you come in, you have one of the brightest futures in the NBA, probably only behind Big Vic. You bring this franchise to heights they hadn't seen since Kevin Garnett had been there. And on top of that, the team trades all your future first-round picks to acquire another co-star next to you to get Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, I mean, there's an old adage in sports that I hear from time to time. It's like, better to trade a guy a year too early than a year too late. Problem for the Wolves is I feel like they traded a guy like 3 years too early.
Yes. So what do you guys think? Are we overreacting? Do the Timberwolves still have a bright future? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and hey, while you're here, check out some of our other content as well. And don't forget to subscribe to Synthetic Sports.